Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's comes at us from James, Martyr, Endless Vortex Towards Erasing Destiny. Now, we have had a Martyr on the channel before, but not this one. That was a European heavy metal band from the 80s, if I remember correctly. And this is a Canadian death metal band who debuted in the 90s. So let's dive into this and see what this Martyr is bringing to the table today. Yeah, so a really quick 5 here. I might even call this 5/8 rather than 5/4 just based off of the speed. Nice harmonies on the separated guitars. Bass line lining up with the guitars, that's cool. Pantera style chugging. Okay, so we shifted to 6th. Ooh, the precision on those palm muted runs.
Vortex towards erasing destiny. Endless vortex erasing my destiny. Night away. Why am I here and now?
Okay, the hammer-ons on the bass sounded sick, but that timbre was so unexpected. Okay. Those fourths, it's not super stable whatever interval they're on. That's what gives it that edge. We shift into like triplet 16th notes there, palm muted. Very clean, very sharp. Wow. Dang, cool stuff. It's a bit too eclectic for me at times, but I think generally I enjoy their harmonic presence. The structure of the song is very fun, like a roller coaster. I never quite know where it's going, but they do a pretty good job of trying to tie everything together. I'm sure it would make more sense on subsequent listens. I think the biggest turnoff for me is the vocals. They're kind of like punk shouty, and then we got those false chord growls in there for like, I don't know, 3 syllables. It was interesting that that didn't come back in the track. But the vocalist is very metal. Metal vocals are metal harshes in particular. They're not my favorite, but he does a good job with them. So I don't want to detract from the skill, even if subjectively not my cup of tea. But I do feel like I need to dig into them. And the thing is, too, is their production's very clean. I'd say almost a bit too clean at times. There's definitely some sections where I might have wanted a little bit more grit and oomph out of it, but I do enjoy the spaciousness of the production on this. So there's a lot of stuff in here that I'm enjoying casually. Makes me want to check them out. And it is a very progressive style of death metal too, and honestly, if I was to pick one extreme metal genre that I've discovered since starting the genre that I would do a deep dive into that I would hopefully enjoy, tech death is probably it. Something in the progressive death realm. That tends to be the genre that works best for me. And this is just another band to add on to that list of stuff that has, kind of clicked for me. Maybe it wouldn't be a daily listen for me, but I could probably get through an album of this and really have fun with it. So given all that praise, let me dive into one thing that I don't know if I really enjoyed, but it's certainly a key element in this track. There's so many odd harmonic choices. Particularly there at the end, I had mentioned that the two guitars in our penultimate riff were giving us, I think, an interval of a fourth, being that it's 4 steps higher in the scale or in the key than the lowest note. And that's not a super stable interval. I don't know if it was a fourth, but it felt like a fourth. The third is a pretty strong one. The fifth is the most stable interval we have. And the second would be 2 tenths. And they were closer than a 6th or a 7th, which is approaching the octave. So my guess right there is a 4th. And yeah, it kind of has that tension, that feeling of I really wanted resolution out of it, but they just hung on to that, pretty much moving together at that 4th interval throughout the entire riff. But even earlier on, once the piano came in, kind of weird to even mention that. There's a piano in this song, and dude, even within its own reverb, it had tension within itself. We were working with incredibly dissonant chords, but it also clashed with the guitars and the bass that were playing around it, and it just creates a general feeling of unease in that moment. That entire section kind of threw me for a loop, but the harmonic quality of it is something that kind of bounced off of me a bit. It's a very specific flair and atmosphere. They're doing a great job at evoking this feeling. It's just not something I particularly enjoyed hearing. It kind of made me feel tense and anxious and like I had wandered into a track I shouldn't be listening to. They did a great job with that, but yeah, like I said, not necessarily a section of the track I'd like to revisit, but moments like this, where maybe harmonically not my cup of tea, it's contrasted pretty heavily with riffs that were. The riffs on this track are incredibly solid. Now, granted, we also have some stuff to contrast that, like the Pantera-style chugging we got in that 2nd or 3rd section of the track. Just very straightforward, get a groove, roll with it. But we contrast that with some incredibly technical stuff. And the thing is too, is that it's super clean. Pretty much every time they went to playing faster licks, they also palm muted, which means that playing, especially with the way that the guitars are constantly harmonizing here, always split in the production, but always playing pretty much the same idea, but not the same notes. And so given that the notes are even shorter and more precise because they're muted, the length is just not as long, the precision between the two guitarists needs to be even more perfect. And it is absolutely phenomenal to hear both of these guitars start and stop their note pretty much at the exact same time during these fast runs. And so you get these little quick hits with small little pockets of space between them. And it just sounds so crisp, especially with the production being as it is. There's a lot of spaciousness in it. If they were going for more of a wall of sound style idea, they could be a little bit sloppier with this, but they're not. You can clearly hear if either of these guitarists were going to be out of sync with the other, and it feels magical to hear these really fast, especially when we shifted to the triplet 16th notes in that very final riff. That just sounded so clean, so cool. Dude, man. And the thing is, the riffs are solid too. I think if you're a riff guy, you're going to enjoy this. But what I really pull out of it is the way that a lot of it feels. I mean, even right there, I wasn't necessarily talking about the notes they were playing. I was talking about how they were playing it and how that was produced. But I think a lot of that cleanliness and precision and obvious, to me at least, craftsmanship and performance and dedication and passion shining through this. That's what really stands out to me on this. Every bit of this track just feels like blood, sweat, and tears. And it sounds so good, and it's well worth the effort they put in for this. But it's not just the guitars either. When I listened to the bass right off the bat, the very first bass lick was playing what the guitars were playing. Now, the guitars weren't playing something super complex like those faster ideas towards the end of the track, but it was still pretty technical. We have some nice syncopation to it. The bass isn't just pedal notes here. The bass gets the time to shine. And I feel like this is one of the things that draws me to tech death in general. This isn't the first time I brought up the fact that the bassist actually gets to contribute something other than foundational elements. And all throughout this track, the bassist is constantly getting cool riffs, counterpoint to what the guitars are doing. It's never just, here's a pedal note, dude, play it for a while. And I love that. The bass sounds great, gets cool riffs, gets a couple of opportunities to showcase their dexterity and their skills a bit. Same goes for the drummer. Although I find this to be a tad bit more muted than the rest of it. There are some places where the drummer really gets to shine. But to me, a lot of it is use of the bass and snare in order to create the rhythmic foundation to it, and then using everything else, the toms or the cymbals, to create the fun syncopation, the interesting rhythmic devices. I mean, just listen to the ride cymbal work in the final 30 seconds of the track or so. Phenomenal stuff. Absolutely love that. It sounds great. Again, production coming in on this. You know what? I think it's just when I get metal that's well produced, high fidelity, good clarity, I'm gonna gush about that, because honestly, it's kind of a rarity. I've kind of come to the place where I just accept that some of the best metal is going to be like mid-fi. And you get something like this, you just hear everything. It's so crisp and clear. But yeah, dude, the cymbal work at the end sounds great, but it's also rhythmically interesting too, and it all just comes together there. So everyone gets to shine. The vocalist I already talked about earlier, they do a great job with what they're doing. It's just there's not as much on display here. There's not a lot of switching back and forth between different styles. When they're in a style, it's kind of monotone. We don't really have any perceived pitch shifting going on with the vocals. It's a bit more straightforward. Still a lot of skill put into it, just not as much on the spectacle side as the guitars and drums are doing. But the vocalist absolutely fits with all of this as well. And sometimes it's more about style than technical elements. So there's something really interesting in this track. I've brought it up once already, but a spaciousness. Metal isn't really known for a deft hand, for a bit of a balanced or delicate entry into something. Metal is raw and extreme and blunt force. And I find it really interesting that this is kind of a delicate track. It's aggressive, sure. The harmonies, the sounds of the guitars, They're all loud, but nothing in here is really large. And I find that to be really interesting, particularly in that first verse, maybe. I don't really have a good idea of structure on this, but a large carving out of the middle of the track occurred. The guitars are off to the side. The bass, interestingly, is above everyone else. That's an interesting place to put it. And the thing is, it's usually, verticality is more of an illusion in music than a reality, especially since you just have, two headphones or two speakers. I don't think is anyone making Atmos music these days? Or any other audio codec that does verticality? I mean, I would assume maybe like performances recorded for theaters. I don't know if that's a thing. They do like plays, musicals. They'll be recorded to be displayed. Oh, you know what they do concerts. I remember seeing some K-pop concerts that were going to be played at my local theater. I wonder if those are recorded with height. Probably not. I don't know. Anyways, usually though, the illusion comes from pitch. Higher pitch instruments sound higher placed than lower ones, completely like a sonic illusion as a parallel to an optical illusion. But interestingly, the bass wasn't really playing the highest notes here, so I don't know why they felt so much higher than everything else. Anyways, though, this space in the middle is kind of carved out. The drums are here, the vocals are kind of doing their thing, but there's the piano. And the piano is an interesting instrument to include here at all. Timbre-wise, I don't know that it necessarily fits, but it is bringing some darkness and dissonance that isn't really present anywhere else. But it's really interesting to hear the song just kind of split open for this piano to rise up and exist in this area. And as it descends down and we leave the piano in the past, the song kind of closes back in. But the spaciousness isn't even just about that. When I listen to the track, the two guitars are pushed out to the sides, and there's not really a lot in the middle. The drums and bass take up so little space in the center of this track, and the vocals are not always present, and when they are, they're also not exceptionally large. There's just a lot of space on this track, and I find that I enjoy that. There's certainly an experiential element missing. To me, metal's big, it's blunt. I just said this. And it's kind of weird to listen to metal that doesn't fill the space, but I think it's also kind of novel and unique. I'm really enjoying it. The instruments still sound gritty. The song is still quite clearly metallic. I don't think it's lost any of that character. It's just lost some of the experience of it. But I actually think it gained something else through that. It sounds different. It sounds novel. I quite enjoy it, actually. And maybe even the softness of size makes it more listenable to me. I do find metal rather fatiguing to listen to in large batches, but this, I could probably do a whole album, maybe even 2 albums of this. This production's just really nice. It's comfortable. Why isn't there more comfortable metal? Martyr, you're onto something here. I dig this. Is there anything else I want to bring up on this? I don't think so. We kind of covered the darkness in here, the tension harmonically, the skill, mastercraft production. I think I touched on all the major things that I wanted to hit on. Let me look up some lyrics for this. Well, first of all, it made me start thinking about my own database of reactions. And as I mentioned earlier, this is the second band we've had on the channel named Martyr. I wonder if I shouldn't have some sort of signifier in the database so that if people are looking up the band Martyr and they see that I checked out a song, oh yeah, that one's pretty sick. And then they see this one and they're like, dude, I've never heard that one before. And they go into it fully expecting, heavy metal or something. I got to find a way to do that, because the reason it came up is because Genius has Martyr and then in not quotations, parentheses, QC. Which I'm going to assume means Quebec, Canada, possibly. They are a Canadian band. They are from Quebec. Anyways, though, It's just something I'm thinking I should probably do. The lyrics are, I mean, it's kind of exactly what it says. There's a vortex that's endless and it wants to erase everything. Destiny is, I think, an interesting way to word that, but it is the eventual destiny of everything to eventually die. What if the vortex just erases that early? Instead of it being a destiny, it is now a current reality. I don't know if we could call it a chorus, but it is where the title shows up. It simply states the title twice and then says the flame died away. A little bit later it says, where am I here and now? Why was I not and never will? And it almost seems as if being erased, having one's destiny erased, didn't just erase them, but also erased everything about the existence at all. There's something really interesting about the verbiage here. Why was I not and never will? Where am I here and now? They feel and sound weird, but I think that they're grammatically correct, technically. It's just difficult to parse the concept of where time and place no longer exist for anything. A vortex has swallowed up every dimension of placeability, of here, an understanding of what this is. There is no longitude, there is no latitude, there is no depth, there is no time. Here, location, time, these don't exist. Why was I not and never will? It's a very interesting question to ask, and it took me like 5 times saying it out loud to really get the gist of it, but it is the verbiage about something that I at least have a tough time understanding at all. I can kind of get it. What if reality were destroyed? Yeah, like on the surface, but do I get that? And I think that's what these words are pointing towards. The first 2 stanzas then seem to be about somebody who finds the here and the now detestable to them. It says, tear me out of this forever lost world between time and space. Tear me out of these realms where life's eternal for those who seize it. I find that to be interesting. I don't know if this is a concept album and they're talking about a fictional realm where anyone who wants to be eternal can, or if this is sort of a way of bringing about the context of history and remembrance into things. That life itself isn't eternal. There will eventually be a death to every life, but that by being remembered by people, you can have a memorialization of oneself. And through that, live eternally, like an artist or a poet. It says, I'm surrounded by lost souls in a paralyzed existence for those whose life is a failure, who are a failure to life. It says that, those who want to make it can, but I'm surrounded by people who can't or won't make it. Life defined by failures, lost souls surround me. I'm curious what this person is feeling, what they're relating all of this to. It doesn't necessarily say that they bring forward the endless vortex, but they do seem to welcome it in a way, just based by their disdain for their current environment. I don't know that the music necessarily lines up with any of this. I found it a bit more dexterous than angry, but there's still an aggression to it given the metallic guitar tones and the aggressive and dissonant harmonies throughout. The vocals certainly match, though. If I were to imagine someone singing these words, yeah, growls, yells, like metal harshes, yeah. It's exactly what I would expect. Well, thanks, James. I was not aware of this group, and now I am, and now I feel like I need to dive into some of their music because I really enjoyed this, and it was almost too short. As I was getting into it, it was over. So I'm actually kind of fond of that. As I've said many times in the past, I would much rather be left wanting more than being done with a work of art before it was over. That's just never a good feeling to enjoy something so much and then just kind of lose interest in it by the, second, third act. It's wrapping up. You're just looking at your watch. So, anyways, I don't know where I'm going with that. These are my thoughts on Martyr's endless vortex towards erasing destiny. What did you think of this track, though? Did you enjoy it? Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Do you have your own take or opinion, perspective on this? Please put all of that, as well as anything else you'd like to add, into the comment section below. Above that, in the description box, is a link to Linktree. It'll take you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. All right, that wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.